there's nothing to talk about.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Hey everybody, it's me, JJ Panzer, your smart apartment advisor with the Real Management Company, back with another weekly talk about what's going on in the rental business, because nothing's ever changing and we never have to learn anything new about the regulations. I actually was in a meeting earlier today with some property managers for a different association. Someone said, well, you know, it seems like it's kind of slowing down. And I'm like, we just got a new law this week. What are you talking about? Like, I'm going to be talking about this in a couple of hours. We have a lot to talk about. This is never going to be less stuff. I mean, we're going to be at least another year of the fallout of this pandemic and the economic impact of it and dealing with trying to recover. So today we'll talk about the federal dollars for COVID relief. We'll talk about SB 91, which replaces AB 3088. We'll talk about local money that is available and a little bit of what goes into that and where that comes from. And then there's some more technical questions that we'll discuss with Denise and see if she has some answers for us. And then also, Josh has some topics to discuss as it relates to the sale market, and we'll have plenty of time for open conversation. So with that, we are looking at a $25 billion fund that was made available by the Biden administration quickly, and it got to the states earlier last month. So it has actually been funded at the Mayor's Office of Housing, and it is available. They are setting up the application process. I don't know when exactly the Mayor's Office of Housing will have this money available to apply for, but it is for tenants who are facing eviction and have deferred rent as a result of the pandemic. I did see there's a restriction in this from anybody with more than 80% of the area median income from applying, and I think the area median income is something like $135,000 in San Francisco. So, you're looking at around $100,000 of household income. And as we've discussed in other calls, if you have multiple roommate situations with, 3 or 4 people with their own incomes who are pooling to rent a $4,000 or $5,000 unit, those situations can be considered separate households under most circumstances, and they can qualify for assistance for their portion of the rent. So it doesn't have to be all the people, together being considered. It's each individual person for their share of the rent. And so we will learn more about what's going on there and how that's going to, that application process is going to proceed from here as we get a little farther down the line. One of the strings, and it's an important thing that, 9 months ago, 8 months ago, when we were talking about this on these calls, we talked about an 80-20 split. So for any past due balance that the landlord was going to be asked to forgive 20% in exchange for 80% coverage by the government funds. And as the process went along, I think in my mind and a lot of my colleagues in this industry, people started thinking, well, that's a nice goal, but the political sausage making is going to end up with us forgiving more than 20%. And it turns out that it is an 80-20 split. We got what we were looking for. I think that's pretty fair. I think that's in most circumstances, that feels like a pretty fair contribution for somebody to make in most circumstances. I don't know whether there's going to be other funding available for this, but I think it's probably, you forgive it, it's gone. But if you can get 80% of the rent that you were due during that time, I think it's important to appreciate that and say, you weren't going to get it from the tenant, and an eviction in a market where there are no tenants to replace the one that moved out, you're not going to benefit very much from that. So with that, we'll move to SB 91, Senate Bill 91. The California legislature also provides $2.6 billion or $2.9 billion, I think it was, to rental assistance. And there's a couple of other things. I think the first group of people that they're going to try to apply this money to will be people, the very poorest, under 50% of the area median income, and then it will move to 80%. And this is an extension of AB 3088, which required us back in September to allow tenants. We had to send informational notices and let them know, that there was money there for them. But we had to allow tenants to defer their rent, and they had a 5-month period ending at the end of January that just expired, where they had to pay 25% of each month's rent, or a total for 5 months of 1.25 months worth of rent for that period, in order to still be eligible to not be evicted. And if they failed to pay and didn't make a declaration that they were without funds, essentially they're just playing games, then evictions were theoretically possible, but I've not thought or heard of any situation where people have tried or move forward on evictions in that kind of a situation. But I also, in our experience, I don't have very many tenants who were playing games with this and deferred when they probably shouldn't have, or were playing, not responding to the notices that we were giving them about the rental assistance and about their rights under the law. So SB 91 extends that until the end of June. So we've got another 5 months. And once again, tenants don't have to pay any of the rent due since last September until the end of June. They have to pay 25% of each month. So we're looking at another total of 2.5 months worth of rent will be due and payable by the end of June, unless the pandemic becomes worse and the lawmakers get to May or June and decide that it needs to be extended further. But the rules are consistent. They keep getting extended, but they are consistently the same. And now we will have an application process that will allow landlords and tenants to apply for this funding to help them out and to get 80% of the past due balance paid. So you figure, if a tenant is able at the end of this to pay the 25%, and then they are able to resume work and continue paying rent, and then you're only looking at 75% of the rent and you have to forgive 25%, you're going to get 60% of the past due balance. In addition to that 25%, you get 85% of your rent. That's not terrible. And so I think that for any landlords who are in a bind, it's a difficult time. And I know a few people specifically who are definitely hurting as a result of not getting rent. But it's important that everybody kind of see that there's some support out there. Now, the tenants' rights advocates, I saw in an article today, doing a little research, they wanted $100 billion in rental relief, and they wanted a 12-month moratorium on all evictions, and they brought that back down a little bit based on the negotiations. But I don't know how far $28 billion is going to go federally, and I think California gets something like $10 billion of that $25 billion. It's a very large chunk California got out of that federal funding. It may not be quite that large, but it was significant. It was more than 1/50th, that's for sure. It was not distributed evenly across all the states, because we have more population than everybody else.
We also have Pelosi and Feinstein and Gavin Newsom, who will run for the presidency one day.
If he doesn't get caught in a left-right squeeze with the recall effort. But right. That seems to be a bit of that's a different issue. But yes, he will run for the presidency one day. I think we all knew that ever since he was mayor here.
3.
Yeah. Yeah, ever since he was 3, exactly. Ever since he was on the Parks Commission, he was not. He was nominated to the Parks Commission, but was it Willie Brown nominated him? I think started that.
Somebody before that.
Well, he was in the traffic commission.
Was it the traffic commission too?
Yeah, yeah, he was a traffic commission. Yeah.
So anyway, now that we're going down to the local level, Bert, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question. I don't understand for the 80%, the tenant needing to pay 20 or 25%, something like that.
Right.
But if the tenant doesn't pay anything, you don't qualify for the 80%. That doesn't seem to make much sense to me.
No, it's based on eviction protection. So if they don't pay the 25% by the end of June, they can be evicted. As long as you've given them the informational notices, you're free to go ahead with an eviction because they haven't paid the bare minimum, the 25%.
But there's no conditions that you can get the 80% regardless, right?
Yes, I believe you can get the 80% regardless. And, you know, if the tenant is stuck right now and they haven't paid any rent and they are still waiting until June to pay rent, and they apply for the money, they can get forgiveness of 20% of the entire past due balance. I would imagine if they get approval for that funding before June 30th.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Is there any money? Have you heard about any money for landlords for long-term vacancies that they're having trouble filling? Nothing.
No, that is strictly our market risk. I have not heard anything for that, and you know, we're one of, it's only been a, you know, blue state problem, a blue city problem. You know, long-term vacancies are not a problem in Sacramento. Long-term vacancies are, you know, less of a problem in outerlying areas where people have moved to because it's cheaper. And so, you know, I'm optimistic that means that they, you know, as easy as it was for them to pull up stakes and go there, they might come back when life improves. But yeah, so yeah, there's no funding for that. Now, at the local level, there's also Dean Preston passed, I think it was what, Prop I, that increased the transfer tax for buildings that sold for $10 million or more. And that in just a couple of months resulted in something like an $11.4 million payment to the city for those taxes. And Dean Preston went in and got $5.7 million of it, half of that money to be applied toward local payments to landlords who have buildings with less than 10 units. And so there's also $5.7 million available. You know, once again, I don't know how far that goes. And it'll be interesting to see. I don't know specifically what strings are attached to that, but there are some definite strings. Now, speaking of local strings, SB 91, Gavin Newsom specifically made it the fact that local jurisdictions cannot preempt any of the terms of SB 91. For example, making it more difficult to get that money based on you know, need or other requirements that the city make, like buildings of less than 10 units. And that less than 10 units is, let's just face it, that's the Veritas rule. They don't want any federal money going to Veritas. It's the big landlord rule. They don't want to be supporting anybody that they see as a corporate fat cat that's been, you know, investing in our market. And so, you know, that definitely made our local legislators very upset, but they are completely unable to attach more strings to landlord and tenant access to the money. So going back, one thing I wanted to mention about the 80 forgiveness, you know, if a landlord refuses to the 20% forgiveness of the past due rent, they are then only eligible to receive a 25% payment. So landlords who don't want to forgive it could, I guess, conceivably decide that they want to collect 25% and then proceed against the tenant for the other 75%. I don't know. I guess they're throwing their hat in the ring in court and deciding that they want to fight for the other 75%. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know a lot of people who would choose that route, but it's it sounds like, once again, political sausage making a way of not forcing people into a 20% discount if they don't want it. So we'll be sending notices to all tenants who have any portion of their rent past due, going back to or March 1st, and letting them know by the end of the month that they have a balance due and that they have a right to receive federal funds. And if any landlord fails to send that notice, they could lose their right to apply for the funds. And so it's very important to do that. And if we get to June 30th and the law hasn't been extended again by the legislature based on the circumstances, then on July 1st, you can send a 15-day notice to your tenants who have a past due balance, and then they have to write back and say that they have a need for the help under COVID. So it also warns tenants that the money will become collectible if they're above 80% of the area median income. So, that's going to be a real challenge, I think, from the standpoint that, I guess a tenant who pays $100,000, depending on the, they would qualify in that circumstance for a $3,000 apartment. That's not the upper level of an apartment. That's not somebody who's, trying to reach for their unit. And so we may have tenants who have been deferring rent who, may not be eligible for this. And that's going to be a question I think each individual landlord needs to talk about. But if the tenant can show that they're unemployed, I think that's kind of an immediate, if they lost their job at any time during the period starting last March to next June, I think they probably will be qualified for this as long as they didn't still have a job and decide not to pay their rent. I mean, it's meant to suss out those who are playing games. So that's really where we're at with all of this stuff. I mean, it looks like one other important point is that under the federal program, it looks like owners or tenants can apply individually for the money, and they don't need to work in coordination. The state is only for the owners to apply for, and I'm not sure yet. I haven't seen anything about whether the tenant has to sign some sort of declaration or anything beyond the, California mandated California Apartment Association forms that have already been released. And then we don't know what the application process is going to be for the local funds, but that is a smaller amount of money. And I think I've said this before, we have 3 tenants who, maybe 4, who have deferred the entire amount of their rent and still not paid anything out of our entire portfolio, which is great. And then we have probably, I haven't looked lately, but 25 or 30, maybe 35 people who have deferred some portion of their rent and have an outstanding balance and will be encouraged to, work with us for us to apply or for them to apply to get support. So it's actually good. I feel like the 80-20 is a win. I feel like the amount of money should be able to help quite a lot of people. And I'm hoping that we start to see some movement on this as the year moves on and that we don't have to extend this again, because if we do, it means we're all in trouble and this is just going to get more and more expensive. Now, before we started, Bert was asking a question, and I'll let Bert go ahead and ask Denise to see if she has any further insight into your specific situation. Bert, you're on mute.
Okay, you're well aware of my issue with the tenant who moved out. Now, I had 2 tenants actually, not one.
Right.
One did the first one give you notice that they were going to move out before they did, according to the contract?
He gave us notice.
Yes. Is there a question there?
Well, the reason I'm saying that is the other tenant never gave us notice. So in theory, he's still a tenant, right?
Correct?
Okay, and on that basis, should I be able to apply for rent recovery for that period of time?
Probably. So there's two different ways of looking at the law. One is the fact that you are going to apply for funds from the federal, the state, anybody who's willing to give it to you. But then Senate Bill 91 comes into play with respect to what you can do in order to seek the damages that you are entitled to due to the breach. And in that sense, you have to comply. We call it a nanny state. You have to literally prove up that you have provided information to the tenants with respect to all possible sources of funding available. And you have to attach that to your complaint. And the complaint is for breach of contract, not necessarily eviction, because we don't have to worry about eviction in your particular case, Bert,
Right.
because they vacated it. So what we're going for now is not possession, but for money and the damages that you suffered. And in order to do that, we need to prove up that you killed yourself, giving this tenant information pertaining to the available funds to him. And you have done everything in your power. You've encouraged him, et cetera. And if the court believes that you have provided enough evidence, they will consider your claim of damages.
Okay, have I
And
done
it's
that?
interesting because the law does not say that the tenant has to prove it.
Yeah.
It says that the court can decide if you've done that and if you've given enough information. So it'll be really interesting to see how that is applied in San Francisco County. Other counties,
Okay.
I think it's going to be a little bit different, but in San Francisco, you know how it is.
Do I need to do anything?
Yes, but we can't do anything now because of the state law until July 1st.
Okay, we have to wait until July 1st. That's what I wanted. Okay.
Yeah, July 1st, we can reactivate. But in the meantime, we should get all of our ducks in a row to make sure that every source of funds is provided. And that's another thing. I'm sure that the different landlord organizations are going to provide the information that we will be required to provide to the tenants that we know in San Francisco County, and then also the state and also federal. So there'll be a list of all the information that we supply and provide to our tenants to confirm that they are attempting to access those funds.
Okay. I will leave it in your hands.
It's very, the only thing I can say is, although it's very boring, you need to read the law because everybody's circumstance is a little different. And every single provision, there's 23 or 26 provisions of the law. Every single provision has different factual patterns that could trigger a different analysis based on what the situation, the fact pattern is regarding the default.
Why am I not surprised?
I know. It's crazy.
It is definitely complicated, and
Very complicated.
you know, these are complicated times, and these are complicated situations, and nobody ever said our business was going to be simple.
Oh yeah.
So with that, I certainly I open the floor. If anybody else has questions they want to ask, I'm happy to answer them, or to Denise as well. Josh, go ahead.
Those of us who adjusted lease amounts based on a request from a tenant who's having trouble, said, hey, I need a break on my lease, and we adjusted that. Do we now feel a little silly in that we should have held the line on that number and then applied, asked them to defer and now be made 80% whole through this process while maintaining that baseline? Is this,
Well,
I mean, it's not a whole lot of money either way, but I just wonder if that's kind of a mistake for some people to have dropped.
Who dropped more than 20%?
Drop more than 20%, yeah.
Did anybody?
I'm
just putting it out there. I mean, to
Yeah.
anybody.
I don't know. I don't think I went below 20%.
Right.
Yeah, I can't think of a lot of leases that we renegotiated that were more than 20%, but I get the feeling based on the tenor of the conversations with tenants that would not have flown. I tried everything in the beginning of this pandemic to be creative, as I've done in the past with, rent terms and lease dates and all that kind of stuff, and try to maintain those base rents. And the prices were falling around us so fast.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, I'm not doing something complicated. Just lower my rent or I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And once again, that is,
Had us over a barrel.
absolutely, we were over a barrel. And also, you look at it from, it's going to be the same as the perspective of, the rent board. When this all, shakes out later, if someone tries to go to the rent board and say, well, my base rent on the lease was X and I lowered the rent temporarily for an economic circumstance, which, at some times has been acceptable, they're going to say, no, the market was falling and you met the market and now that's your base rent.
Mm.
And
Nice.
they've done that before.
Mhm.
So, we know that's coming. Yeah.
And respectfully, just because we know that there's billions of dollars out there, doesn't mean we're going to get it.
Right.
Right.
I mean, that's another,
Right.
just
And
because
how
it's
much,
there doesn't mean that you're going to get that check.
based on how much red tape we're potentially talking about.
Mhm.
Right. And a lot of those tenants, most of those tenants were not coming to us saying, my income has been affected and I need some relief to help pay it. They're saying the rents are lower. I don't want to pay this much money.
Right. So
They
then it's
qualify.
just a business. It's just a business decision. at that
Yeah,
point.
and they'd never qualify for the support, so we wouldn't have
Right.
gotten that money in the first place.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
that's a good question, though. That's a good question.
Mhm.
Any other questions on rent relief and COVID and this new bill? All right. Well, if not, and once again, if anybody has other questions, feel free to email me, ask me offline. With that, I'll introduce Josh formally as our senior sales agent to talk a little bit about the sale market and to let us know what's going on, your couple of insights as to what's going on.
Can you do
Oh, yeah.
share screen?
Absolutely. Advanced. Go. All right.
Good.
Yep.
So, everybody, why is this doing it like this here? There we go. So here's some stats. This will be brief. I'm not going to dig too deep into these numbers, but I just kind of wanted to talk about what Compass put together some numbers for 2020 for apartment sales in San Francisco, and they've summarized them here. And what's been so interesting to me about the San Francisco apartment market is that prices just aren't dropping for buildings very much. They're kind of holding the line. And I'll show you what's really essentially happening is that just volume has really kind of gone off a cliff, but prices aren't. So people are either holding the line and trying to get 2019 prices when they sell a building, or 2018, whatever it is, or just pulling it off the market. So here you have the median sales price of buildings in 2020 here, very similar to 2019. But then here's where the big drop is. So annual sales volume, 2019 was 143 deals, five unit plus in San Francisco, and then we dropped all the way down to 86 in San Francisco in 2020. And so that's where the damage kind of has been, is that there's just so much less activity. But in what I would think is that prices would drop and you'd see that number kind of be larger, but just so many people are basically just not participating in this market. And so there's just a lot of buildings on the sideline right now. This one, again, cap rates in San Francisco. In 2019, buildings were selling at 4.3. In 2020, selling at 4.3 cap rate. So you'd think cap rates would go up, that investors would be saying, okay, I'm buying into a weak market. I need a better return. I need a higher cap rate. No, it's not happening. So It's just it's just a strange thing. I just thought that, you know, I did see cap rates go up a bit for a while, and then they just kind of, all the buildings that are coming out now are just, you know, I'm still surprised. I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, you know, who's going to buy that right now? Who's going to buy a kind of a low cap deal on 2019 market conditions in today's market conditions? But people are like, okay, I'll try it. If I don't hit that number, I'll just pull it off the market and I'll wait it out. So that's been an interesting thing. Again, price per square foot, same 2018, 2019, 2020. I would have thought that would have dropped. It did not. Here's where rents, here's where our rent drops are. 20 to 25% reduction in rents. It's just not translating in price of building. It's so strange thing. The only way it's translating is just a lot less transactions. So I found that kind of interesting. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about that, but I just kind of wanted to share. Yeah, Denise, hi.
Do you have any idea how to explain that
So,
other than the lack of volume?
explain why the prices for the buildings are not dropping. I think people are seeing this. They're saying this is a blip. This is a temporary condition. I don't want to take a big discount right now for my building. If they don't absolutely have to sell, which most people don't absolutely have to sell, they're just going to wait it out.
And then these buyers are just betting to come then, right?
And everybody's just kind of waited out, right?
Yeah.
It's just there's just a lot of the buyers and the investors are on the sidelines. I really thought there's going to be a lot more buying opportunities in this.
Yeah.
I thought there was going to, but sellers are holding firm. They're holding firm, and they're thinking that, yeah, who know? I mean, you know, wait out 2020 and revisit it in 2021. I mean, I'm sorry, wait out 2021 and revisit next year. We'll see. It's hard to say. I mean, our rents dropped 20 to 25%, right? And so eventually that's going to have to show up in building prices. I mean, you know, as these units fill back up at lower numbers, you know, so the gross sale price should drop. But I'm also thinking, just based on the additional risk, cap rates should seem to go up, but maybe not. Maybe it's just we just adjust and the price of buildings drops a bit, but neither of those things are happening. Price of building, cap rate, nothing. So,
Josh, I'd be curious to see if we can find in the MLS if there's any other information about canceled or expired listings.
yeah,
Like this.
sure.
Because, you know, that would be interesting. I know that's there somewhere. You can always look, but to see how that compares over the course of you know, canceled or expired listings per month or over the course of a year,
Sure.
going back a couple of years, might tell us that, you know, people are putting places on the market and totally comfortable pulling them back off the market if somebody doesn't meet their price,
Right.
which means they're basically looking. I think the thing that's pushing this market in this direction is the low interest rates. It's practically free, but it's very difficult to get a bank to lend on, you know, probably more than 50-60% of the value of the building. So you have to come in very, very well capitalized, which is what people should be doing anyway, but it's even more so than normal.
Yeah, and if sellers are holding firm on 4.5 caps and you're buying into this and you have 20% vacancies on schedule, you know, and so you're 4.5 cap on scheduled rent, and you're like, it's just going to come out to less transactions. There's just not a deal there.
Right.
So that's what you're saying. There's just not that many buying opportunities. So that's interesting. I don't know exactly how this will play out for this year. It's hard to say. My prediction earlier was we're going to see a lot more deals. It didn't happen. So, so that's a little snapshot there. The other thing I wanted to share was, so this is, this I'm going to share, let's see here, come down here. This is more for, so this is a, I'm just sharing this because we all love real estate. This is my development project in Oakland. And so as another component of kind of what we do and what we think about, we're also building, I bought this building here in Lower Diamond District of Oakland.
I don't see it on the screen, Josh.
You don't?
No, I don't see it.
Sharing is paused. Resume share. Here we go.
I think it froze up, Josh, as you were changing the screen out.
Okay. Try this one.
There we go.
You can see this?
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
There we go.
You can see this. Look at that beauty. So yeah, this is, you know, and this just opens up conversations about building improvements, ground up development, flipping buildings, all this. So I'll just kind of tell this quick story here. So this is a 6-unit building we bought in Lower Diamond, like I mentioned, 2 commercial units and 2 commercial units ground level, 4 studios at the top. How you like that stone? That's real beautiful stuff there.
Fred Flintstone's coming right out that door.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, I gotta have this building. So bought this. It had a big, you can kind of see it in the back. So there's a big lot in the back. It has this funky tail end of this building on the back. And then a big kind of dirt lot back there with that. And so we always bought this building with the intention of developing that back. So the first thing we did was we fully renovated head to toe every unit, exterior, interior of this building. Then we tore down that tail end there and started building this. So this back lot is a 6-unit condo project, 5 parking spaces on the ground level, 1 unit, 1 2-bedroom, 2-bath on the first floor, 1-bedroom units, 3 1-bedroom units on the middle floor, and then the top floor, which you can't see yet, 2 2-bed, 2-bath, and a roof deck. Where the framing coming together. So this is when we finished the front building. So essentially these buildings are going to be built to look exactly the same, like it's one project. So these tile are going to run, the tile on the base are going to run over into the new condo project as well in this color scheme. We're kind of matching the kind of upper Fruitvale kind of mission vibe.
Where's the rock?
Rock's gone, Denise. I had to let it go. Can you believe it?
Oh, sad.
Dump it into the bay.
Yeah. So there's the third
That'll be
story.
nice. Very nice.
So this is the gym. This was just a big open. So this is one of the commercial space. It's now a gym, which they're having problems being a gym these days. This is one of the units renovated in the studio. So we just did every unit, all 4 kind of look like this, which are nice. They're renting right now. I just finished putting the new gas lines in, so I'm renting these right now. So So the facade looks great. Came out really nice. Took a long time to do.
It looks great.
Thank you.
Yes, it definitely looks better.
Yeah. So this is the front. And they just put up the scratch coat on the new building, and so this is how it looks basically right now. And then stucco is going to go up, and then we paint it, and then the exterior sealed, and then finish up with fire sprinklers, and then start really cranking, building out the units, flooring, and all of that. And so very exciting project, very, very stressful, fun to do. It's taken, I think, years off my life, I'd say. But
You plan to hold or sell, Josh?
so we're not. This is an interesting building in which it can be. I could treat it as 12 rental units and hold it, refinance, rent it, refinance it, try to pay back the construction loan. But I think the best play here is to sell this new construction, six condos to 6 individual buyers, and then that front building, hold it as a rental.
Mhm.
In
Is
order
this
to
one
do,
condo project?
yeah, so it was interesting. So we had to convert the existing building to a condo, and this back building became 6 condos, so it became a 7-unit condo project.
Right.
Because you couldn't have condos on the same lot as a rental property, right?
That's
That's what you're referring to, right?
Yeah, and also if you're on one lot, it would be hard unless you have a specific PUD or planned use development agreement with the city, so.
Right. And we were able to get the project through as a renovation, actually, because of the existing structure, which kind of helped move it along.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be 7 condos, and so I can sell that front building by itself as soon as the condo conversion goes through, or just hold it. But yeah, I think the best play is to sell the existing condo. So that's when the scratch coat. That's when prior to the scratch coat. And this is the roof deck. So the roof deck's going to be awesome.
Beautiful.
It's kind of a 360 view up through the Oakland Hills, and so anyway.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I just want to share that. That was a little show and tell.
And that'll be on the market, those other condos, later this spring?
Yeah, hoping to finish within, yeah, exactly, like 60 days. We're hoping to be done. Supposedly, once I can start insulating and drywall and that whole deal, it goes really fast. That's what they keep telling me to make me less nervous.
Yeah.
So that's when they really start cranking. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
You just hope they've got lots and lots of people working.
Right. Exactly.
So that you're happy every day you go there. Wow, look at all the action.
Exactly. I love it when they're screaming at each other. I even love it when they're fighting, because I'm like, there's passion. Let's go.
Nobody's walking off this job. No long lunches, right?
No. Let's go.
Let's get it done. Yes, that's the worst part, when you go to a construction site and there's nobody there.
Oh yeah, that's horrifying. Yes.
Nothing there, all your stuff walked off too.
That's right.
Right.
All your stuff will walk off if you go to an empty job site.
And then they'll send it back to you for $20.
Yes. Well, thank you, Josh. That was
Sure.
very interesting. Thank you for the market insight and the update on your project. I'm interested to see that. I haven't seen pictures of that project in a while. So good work, and thanks everybody. It's great having you, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Hopefully we won't have too much very, very new stuff. Thank you, Denise, for joining us as always, and it's great to see everybody. Take care. Have a good one. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Good seeing everybody.
Bye.
Bye.